it went to a wrong microphone. It seemed to be working for a second, then all of a sudden stopped. So let's carry on. Anyway, so I will be on YouTube, and hopefully more people will subscribe, hit the bell, and let's start. This is a continuation of what I've been talking about on the Gospel According to Spiritism, which is a great book. If you've like me and you've read the Bible, especially when you're younger, and there were so many parables and things that you didn't really quite understand, the Gospel According to Spiritism there's things in here that tells you what Jesus meant, what the spirit world meant. And now in this chapter, which is entitled Give for Free What Has Been Received Gratuitously, Allan Kardec, in talking and communicating with spirits, he did not communicate. He's a codifier of Spiritism. What he did is he asked questions and received answers back from multiple mediums in different geographical locations. And when he got different answers back, he codified those first in the Spirit's book, which I am doing an audiobook on. I have finished book 1. I think there's 4 books. That is also on my site. You can download that in the regular iTunes format, which you can skip chapters, or you can just listen to it on MP3. So you can do either way. The Spirit's book, I'm recording that. It's going to take me another, probably 3 or 4 months, but I got book 1 completed. So again, that is free. And also on my site, nwspiritism.com, you can scroll down on the right-hand side navigation bar, and you can find Spiritism 101. And you can download the PDF for free. And the rest of my books I have in Kindle and paperback, and quite a few of them I have in audio format. So there's all sorts of information you can get talking about gratuitously. So let's get right into it. So in Matthew 10, verse 8, this is what is written by Allan Kardec. That was in the New Testament. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Freely you have received, freely give. So Allan Kardec wrote about that. And he said, give for free what has received gratuitously is what Jesus told his disciples. With this recommendation, it is prescribed that no one be charged for something for which nothing has been paid. Now, what they had received gratuitously was the faculty of healing those who were sick, and that of expelling devils, that is to say, bad spirits. God gave them this faculty gratis for the alleviation of those who suffer and as a means of propagating faith. Jesus then recommended that they did not turn this into an object of commercialization, neither speculation nor means of livelihood. And you see this all the time. In Spiritist meetings, there's never any charge for when you go to a medium, or if you're in a medium's meeting, or if you get a message during a medium's meeting. All the time, my wife and I have been in medium's meetings. I'm not a medium. We've never been charged anything by the Spiritist Center. And I say any Spiritist Center you go to for talking to a medium, you're not charged. Now, a Spiritist Center may ask for a monthly donation if you're a member of that Spiritist Center, so they can help other people and keep their rent and all that. But they won't charge for a medium's communication. And in fact, what is said many times is mediums who charge us, these like these people who, like fortune tellers and so forth, a lot of them have mediumistic ability. But what will happen is, since they charge for it, that the level of the medium determines the level of the spirit they communicate to. And therefore, they'll communicate probably to, if they start charging, the high spirits will not give them messages. They'll get lower and lower spirits, and there'll be spirits probably more in the umbral who will come and talk to about a person's future. A lot of times they may give wrong advice, and many times they could be right. But it's all up, just so people understand that when a medium's charge, they'll get less and less information from higher spirits. That's not to say they won't get information, good information, from lower spirits, but the lower the spirit, the less future one sees, right? The higher you are in the spirit universe, you see the farther ahead and farther back, right? It's all relative. And the lower spirit you are, you may just see a little bit ahead and so forth. So that's why keep that in mind if you're talking to mediums. And if they charge you, know that what information you're getting is only going to be so far in the future, and it may not be correct. Although you never know. I mean, who knows? And things can change. So this is kind of a word to the wise there. So, and then Allan Kardec goes in Mark chapter 12, verse 38, 40, and the same thing in Matthew chapter 23, verse 14, and Luke chapter 20, 45 to 47. Said, then in the audience of all the people, he said unto his disciples, beware of the scribes, which desire to walk in long robes, and love greetings in the markets, and the highest seats in the synagogues, and the chief rooms at feast, which devour widows' houses, and for a show make long prayers. The same shall receive greater damnation. So what did Allan Kardec write about this? He said, Jesus also said, do not make charges for your prayers. Do not do as the scribes who, on pretext of long prayers, devoured the homes of widows. That is to say, they took possession of their fortune. Prayer is an act of charity, an ecstasy of the heart. To charge someone for the prayers we direct to God in their name is to transform oneself into a paid intermediary. Then prayer becomes a mere formula whose length is in proportion to the amount it cost. Moreover, only one of the following can be true. Either God measures or does not measure his blessings by the number of words used in a prayer. If these were necessarily in large numbers, why are there so few said, or even none, for those who cannot pay? This is a lack of charity. If one word is sufficient, then an excess of words is useless. How then can we charge for prayers? This would be a corrupt practice. God does not sell his benefits. He concedes them. How then can one who is not an agent and cannot guarantee results charge for a petition which may produce no results? It is not possible that God makes an act of clemency, kindness, and justice and asks for, because of his infinite mercy, subject to the payment of a sum of money. And if that sum were not paid or was insufficient, then the justice, kindness, and clemency would be suspended. Reason, good sense, and logic tell us it is impossible that God, who is absolute perfection, could delegate to imperfect beings the right to establish a price for his justice, which is like the sun. It exists for all, rich and poor alike. And it is considered immoral to trade in favors of any earthly sovereign. Could it then be illicit to commercialize those of the sovereign of the universe? Kardec continues, yet another drawback is presented by paid prayers, which is the one that buys them judges themselves, in most cases, to be relieved from the need to pray. They consider themselves exonerated since they gave their money. We know that spirits are touched by the fervor of the thoughts who those are interested in them. But what fervor can be felt by one who arranges a third party to pray for them on payment of money? What kind of fervor has that third party when he delegates his task to another, and that one yet another, and so on? Does this not reduce the efficiency of prayer to the value of currency? So all this is exactly true. In fact, let's go all the way back to Socrates, because Socrates, and one of the reasons he was condemned to death was the fact that he also said that, during the times of paganism, the size of your offering, God doesn't care about the size of your offering. He wants you to become a better person. And of course, the main reason he was killed is because he kept saying might is not right. And it's other things too. But I mean, one of the ones is that just because you're stronger doesn't give you the right to tell other people what to do. And this is 400 years before Christ. And that was, even times of Christ, that was kind of the common message of if you have the strength, then you can do whatever you want, right? And of course, 400 years before Christ, the elites of Athens did not like hearing that. They don't like hearing that today in many cases. So again, this shows you even Socrates before Christ, I believe he was a precursor of Jesus. If you read the Socratic dialogues, there's many things in there. In fact, Allan Kardec even writes about it that are in common And Socrates was trying to tell us things that Jesus later told us again. And Buddha was around the same time as Socrates, around 400 years of Christ. It was in a different geographical location, again, trying to tell people how you should behave. And this is what is wonderful about Spiritism, because there's always, I remember reading, and I forgot the name of the author, but they were talking about different religions and how, how they must have stolen from each other and so on. But really the answer is these religions were started by people on missions from Jesus. A lot of them were ministers of Jesus. So Socrates, Buddha, Zoroaster, and Confucius, Lao Zhang, if I'm pronouncing that right, were ministers of Jesus who came here to start trying to give people a moral formula and doctrine to follow so they could someday ascend and have the whole earth ascend. And so, and then Jesus came and tried to give us more information. And of course, he gave us a lot of information in parables, and that's because people weren't ready for what we were told. And you can see that by what Spiritism tells us. Spiritism is telling us a lot. In fact, it continually tells us more and more about the spirit world when we are ready. In the New Testament, there are certain things. And in fact, Spiritism tells us that the messages of morality and charity and fraternity are eternal. All else, you take it with a grain of salt, and you know that that is what the spirits told people and how they could, receive the message in the culture and technology that existed today. And then when you look at what spirits told later, like Chico Xavier, the great Brazilian medium, G. Val Owen, where more and more they're revealing extra details about heaven, how thought is action, how you can access this universal cloud and get information, and all these things that people couldn't understand that. But now with cloud computing and computer science and software kind of more known because people have cell phones and apps close to them all the time, they can understand that concept. So that's an important thing. So let's carry on. So again, let's talk more about prayers. In paying for prayers. In medieval Europe, the path to heaven was straightforward. You went to confession and a priest absolved you of your sins. If your crime was particularly horrendous, you paid the church a fee and walked away a blameless, pure soul. The Catholic Church was the sole conduit to God. In other areas of the world, there were pockets of greater enlightenment, but still the general inclination was for the priestly class to control their domain tightly. And of course, that's one of the reasons why Jesus came to earth, is to get this away from the priestly class. But then the Catholic Church tried to bring this back into him again. That's why we have Spiritism now, and why more and more people will have mediumistic ability, and why it's important to study for yourself Spiritism. You don't want it interpreted by someone for you. You don't have to listen to me. Read it for yourself, make your own interpretation. And if you disagree with me, tell me, because there's always ways of interpreting, because there's so much information. And I'm sure we're just given little, it's like we're peeking through the keyhole, but to us, it's so much more relatively based than what we hear from other religions and doctrines. Let me give you another example of a paid prayer. In one of the books psychographed by Francisco Chico Xavier, Andre Luis, a spirit who wrote a series of books about life in the spirit world, tells of an encounter with a woman dressed as if she was a wealthy landowner from the 18th century. She meets Andre after she had been wandering in the lower zone for what seems to her to be countless years, and complains about her experiences. She tells Andre that she had given regularly to the church, and in her will, she instructed her son to continue the gifts to ensure a speedy path to heaven. She couldn't understand her current predicament. After all, she had been kinder than most to her slaves. The poor soul had been misled. Her pastor had encouraged her, believing that all will be made right with a little greasing of the palm of the person supposedly close to God. She had paid her dues, shown up on time every Sunday. She sang the right songs. She read the appointed words and hated the people who all of her cohort and other upper class families also despised. She's one of the group. What could have possibly gone wrong? I mean, who can blame her for thinking like this? This is what everyone thought. Well, in one word, what could go wrong? Everything. She had the criteria for evaluation, and her ability to rise into heaven completely turned around. She concentrated on the outside. Her dress, her wealth, her rituals, class, and eating restrictions were the primary considerations. She did not understand that she could have dressed how she wished, loved who she wanted to love, and eaten what she desired on whatever day, and not show up on Sundays and still ascend to a heavenly city. Outside accoutrements are nothing compared to what is inside. Form is not good enough. Substance is what counts. The facade that most of us construct is transparent to the spirit world. Whereas we feel safe if we maintain the appearance of respectability, secure in the knowledge that our thoughts are hidden to the outside world, this isn't true to our spirit mentors. To them, we aren't automatons of actions, but in reality, radio towers of constant transmissions of thoughts. Imagine one of these reality shows where you're seeing people, right? And right now you see them, and you see them do actions, and you see them speak words. But imagine what that would be if you could detect all of their thoughts, all of their true feelings, what they were really thinking. How much would that change your opinion on each individual person? That's what the spirit world sees us. We are just all out there. We are like the baby that, we cry, and you can see when babies are crying, their face starts getting ready, even before they're crying. It's just completely transparent. We are really the same. And that's why we should get used to that. We should get used to the fact that everything we do, say, think, feel is all known. It's all known to our betters. That's even actually the worst part, right? It's all known to people who are morally superior to us, but who still love us and want the best for us. So let me restate. In the spirit realm, thought is action. And this is what we are being prepared for. This is why we're on earth, to go through what we're reforming our thoughts. This is tough. This is tough work. There's stimuli coming in. We go through these planned stimuli in order to erase primitive emotions and replace those with more advanced emotions. It's not a simple assignment, because for us to get rid of the thirst for revenge and selfishness and pride must take multiple lifetimes. Who knows how many it's taken me? I know they've told me in mediums meetings I failed time and time again, and I've been in positions of power, and I took money and used it for myself instead of helping people. So, that's my story. So again, that's why hopefully I'm doing better this time. And this is the stimuli that will help get me to be in a better place. And hopefully my next life, I will be, from a much younger age, a better person. Because as a spirit rises, they become less dense, right? When you're in heaven, you become less dense as you rise in spiritual maturity. And you become less composed of physical matter and more pure energy. So hence, the purpose of our successive reincarnations is to modify our ratiocination processes, the way we think. To put it simply, our objective is to learn to think good, constructive thoughts in every circumstance and to maintain our spiritual harmony at all times. Now, let's go to the next quote he had. This is the money changers expelled from the temple. And this is in Mark chapter 11, verse 15 to 18. And they come to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer? but ye have made it a den of thieves. And the scribes and chief priests heard it and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him, because all the people were astonished at his doctrine. So Allan Kardec writes that Jesus expelled the merchants from the table. With this act, he condemned the trading of sacred things in any form whatsoever. God does not sell his blessings, neither he nor his pardon, nor the right of entrance into the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, man has no right to stipulate a price for such things. So let's contrast that. Let's look at what Allan Kardec said, and to something. There was a passage in the book. It was in the book In the Greater World. And again, this was by the medium Chico Xavier, and the spirit is Andre Luis. Now, Andre Luis, if you haven't read his series of books, his first book is No Solar. His books are wonderful. And in fact, his first book was made into a movie. You can see that's Astral City, and you can rent that. So, but No Solar, Nosso. And I would recommend anybody read that book. So in that book, In a Greater World, it's a later book, not the first one. There's Andre Luis is invited to hear a lecture by Eusebio to a mixed group of Catholics and Protestants. Now, albeit a less dogmatic and more likely to be persuaded types of persons. So Andre Luis was surprised that the lecture is being held, and he was told, it's important to understand that divine protection shows no privileges. Heavenly grace is like the fruit that always results from our earthly effort. Wherever there is human cooperation, there too will be divine support. That's what he was told. Now, this information leads us to believe that the tone and substance of the lecture will be similar, a call to action, a request to get with the program, as was done in the first lecture that was done for Spiritists. But it's different, because in the lecture for Spiritists are saying, come on, you need to get out there, you need to do more work, you need to study more, talk to people, etc. Now, in the spirit world, when they're lecturing to Catholics and Protestants, these are people in their dream state. They're leaving their bodies and they're talking to them in their dream state. So the effectiveness of this is probably pretty low, but something's better than nothing. So in this lecture, Eusebio opens what it meant to be a Christian in ancient times, and he reviewed the sacrifices they underwent. Next, Eusebio offers a challenge. However, as heir to those nameless heroes who lived in affliction, of minds built up in the promises of Christ, what have you done with transforming hope and unwavering trust? What have you done with the living faith that your forebears acquired at the price of blood and tears? Eusebio then delves into his opinion of exactly what these institutions of faith have actually accomplished. Now, here's some quotes I took out from the book. You have erected barriers against each other that are difficult to cross. Dogmatism poisons you. Schism corrupts you. Narrow interpretations of the divine plan darken your mental horizons. Another one. What delirium has taken you as you involve yourselves in a mutual competition for the imaginary obtainment of divine privileges. Another one sentence. In times of old, Christ's disciples competed for opportunities to serve, whereas today you look for every opportunity to be served. So during this lecture, after a devastating review of their faults, Eusebio arrives at his request. This is what he says. This is a quote. Therefore, do not limit your demonstration of trust in the Most High to the ceremonies of outward worship. Get rid of the indifference that chills your ornate cathedrals. Let us make ourselves each other's true brothers and sisters. Let us transform the church into the sweet home of the Christian family, whatever our interpretations might be. So this was a plea for a less bureaucratic and more involved practice of the religious principles, an appeal for less infighting and more focus on the fraternal family under Christ. Now, whereas the goal for Spiritists is to change the world, the request for souls at this lecture is to return to their Christian roots and at least stop fighting each other. The spirit world is not expecting the audience to change the world, but to outwardly demonstrate the teachings of Christ as revealed in the New Testament. This is not easy, I'm sure. The spirit world is first attempting to steer the ship of the large religious organizations back onto a truly fraternal course. And without this correction, the ability and required openness to accept the Spiritist doctrine would be absent, because Spiritism tells us in the future, all the major religions will accept the Spiritist doctrines. There won't just be one Spiritist church. There'll still be different religions, but they'll accept the fact of the spirit world, of reincarnation, of the process of karma. All these things will be accepted. But then churches will then start going into more places where they help students study, they help older people, they help poor people. They'll be, instead of places where you go every Sunday and, you get a religious lecture or whatever and feel good about yourself, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong in that. It's more of a helping other people place, which a lot of churches are. God bless them all. There's a lot of people out there who are very devoted and do a lot of good work. So I'm trying not to say that doesn't exist. But the spirit world wants more of it, is what's said. So let's carry on with Allan Kardec. This is what he writes. Mediums today, since the apostles also possess mediumship, have equally received a faculty gratis from God, this of being interpreters of the spirits for the instruction of mankind, to show them the pathway of goodness, conducting them along by means of faith, not to sell words which do not belong to the mediums, seeing that they are not fruits of their conception, nor of their research, nor of their personal work. God wants the light to reach everyone. He does not want the poorest to be deprived of it, so they can say they have no faith because they cannot pay for it. Know that they have the consolation of receiving encouragement and testimony of affection from those they weep for, because they were too poor. This is why mediumship is not a privilege and is to be found in all places. To make someone pay for it is to turn it away from its providential objective. So this is really, again, the question of mediumship is a tough one for many religious people, many Catholics and Protestants. And that is because they're told over and over again, don't communicate with spirits. But when you think of the early Christians, Jesus communicated with spirits all the time, with his God. The apostles had huge spiritual power, and Paul, again, huge spiritual power. They were mediums. And in fact, during the early Christian churches, as we were talking, as the Spiritism doctrine tells us, they had mediums meeting and they were communicating with the other side. So I believe one of the reasons why the Bible was made, so they kept telling you don't, probably for the same reason why they took the concept of reincarnation out of the Bible, is, first of all, they didn't want people to know that they had life after life, and they didn't want people to know that they could speak to mediums, to spirits themselves, or a medium who's not part of the church, and not gain money from it. They wanted people who were dependent on the church in this life, their only life. And that's not true. You're not dependent on the church. You're not dependent on anyone. You're only dependent on yourself, no one else, for your life. And if you make a mistake in this life, it's never too late. You've always got another life. You are an immortal soul. If you make a big mistake, just know, okay, face the consequences and try to do it in this life if you can. If not, you've got the next life. This is another wonderful thing about Spiritism. When you're old like me, right? And you think, well, when they're old, what kind of dreams can they have? Well, you can have lots of dreams, because I always think, okay, what do I want to do in my next life? What do I want to do when I go in the spirit world? What kind of job do I want? There's many dreams and things that you can wish and desire and study for. This is what's great when you know you're an immortal soul, and when you move over, you are who you are, and you can improve yourself here and get yourself ready when you're in heaven. So again, but this is a hard one to get past for many Catholics and Protestants. And there's some truth in what they say, is it's dangerous to talk to spirits. And this is why Spiritism is very careful of how they train mediums. And when spiritist centers have meetings, they have it in the center, because in the center, the spirits who are in charge of that spiritist center, They control the environment. So only the spirits that medium's meeting should talk to are there to talk to them. Whereas if you're in your house, you could have spirits that have no control whatsoever, and you could be bothered by spirits, and you could get totally wrong information. This is why anybody interested in mediumship should read Allan Kardec's The Book of Mediums. It's very important. And there's also other books, The Domains of Mediumship, one of the books by Andre Luis, and understand it, and try if you can. You don't have to. Try if you can to go to a Spiritist center to be trained. So, but they are correct to be careful, because, and if you want to do it on your own, establish a time, a day of the week in one room, right? The same room. And don't try to do any mediumship in that room for a couple weeks, right? Just sit there, meditate, and ask for help, ask for guidance. And the spirit world will pick up on that, and they'll start to become around you during those times. Let's say you're at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock every Thursday night. Stay that time, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock Thursday nights. And eventually the spirit world will say, oh, these people are trying to understand Spiritism, and they're trying to talk to us. They will come there. They will protect that room against other spirits coming in and giving you bad information. Even then, one should read the medium's book and all that, and make sure, because they may just let some in just to say, okay, let's see how, let's teach them some things about how to detect spirits who don't know what they're talking about, because there are many spirits who will just fool people. So just a word of caution. I know it's exciting to many people. I myself, it's fine. I know I like being at medium's meeting, but it's not important to me as part of being a spiritist. Let me carry on to what Allan Kardec said. To those who understand the conditions in which good spirits communicate, the feeling of repugnance they have towards everything which shows selfish interests, and know how little it takes to drive them away, could never accept that superior spirits are at the disposal of the first who comes along and evokes them at so much procession. Simple good sense rejects such an idea. Would it not also be profanity to evoke for money those who we respect or those who are dear to us? Beyond a doubt, communications can be obtained in this manner, but who can guarantee their sincerity? Spirits of a frivolous, deceitful, mocking nature, and all the bank of inferior spirits, who are not at all scrupulous, always come running ready to reply to whatever is asked with no regard for the truth. Those then who desire serious communication should before all else ask with seriousness, and following this should inform themselves of the nature of the sympathies the medium may have with the beings from the spirit world. Therefore, the first conditions necessary to attract the benevolence of good spirits are humility, devotion, abnegation, and total disinterest, both moral and material. And besides the moral question, an effective consideration also presents itself, which is no less important. This refers to the actual nature of the faculty itself. Serious mediumship cannot be and never will be a profession, not just because it would be morally discredited and rapidly become mere fortune-telling, but because there is a material obstacle in opposition. Mediumship is a faculty which is essentially unstable, elusive, and variable, whose permanency no one can count upon. It is a very uncertain source for anyone wishing to exploit it, and can fail at the moment it is most needed. I'll carry on with what he's saying. It's very interesting. So he's telling you kind of what I've said, but in a much better manner, of course. I'll carry on. A talent acquired by study and work is another matter, and is for this very reason a skill can be legitimately used to advantage. But mediumship is neither an art nor a skill, therefore it cannot become a profession. It only exists through cooperation of the spirits. If they are absent, there is no mediumship. The aptitude can exist, but the exercise of it would be annulled. Also, there is not a single medium in the world who can guarantee the obtaining of a spiritual phenomena at any given moment. So then to exploit mediumship is to make use of something which does not really belong to that person. To state the contrary is to deceive the person being charged. What is more is not that they themselves who the exploiter commands, but rather the concourse of spirits, the souls of the dead whose cooperation they put a price on. This idea causes instinctive repugnance. It was the trafficking, the exploitation by charlatans that degenerated into abuse, the ignorance, and the incredulity, and the superstition, which motivated its prohibition by Moses. Modern Spiritism understands the serious question of this nature, has completely discredited this exploitation, so elevating mediumship to the category of a mission. And this is important. Mediumship is something sacred which should be practiced in a saintly and religious manner. And if there's one type of mediumship which requires this condition even more absolutely than the others, is that of healing. A doctor gives the fruits of his study, which were often gained at the cost of painful sacrifices. A magnetizer gives his own fluids, sometimes even his health. A price can be put on these. A curing medium, however, retransmits healing fluids from the good spirits and consequently has no right to sell them. Jesus and his apostles, although poor, did not charge for the cures they obtained. So then, those who lack the necessary means of financial support can seek their funds wherever they like, except within mediumship, and if necessary, only dedicate their spare time to their work after the material needs have been satisfied. The spirits will take into consideration the devotion and sacrifices, whereas they will turn away from those who expect to turn them into a ladder for material accession. So let me talk about that for healing mediums. Now, I have been to a healing medium, in fact, multiple times, and there is a center, and it's Chico Monteiro, and he is in the city of Rio Novo. In fact, I have a YouTube video on it, and I have 2 articles on 2 of my times I went there. And each time, there's no charge. I mean, there's a donation box, and he has some books he sells, and he will sell some herbal medicine. If he says, you might want this, but you can buy it anywhere. He'll tell you exactly what it is. And he says, you don't need to buy it from me. You can buy it anywhere. And I'll usually put some money in the donation box because he has volunteers working for him and he has to rent a place because he has quite a few people. But I mean, I'll give like $10, right? Nothing. And yet I tell you, during this time of quarantine, when I haven't gone for, months, I feel the effects of not going there. Now, why I went there wasn't for a miracle cure, although I've heard of people who've had fantastic cures. For me, it was just general health and, other things. And, so I felt it helped me a lot. And it's interesting because when I talked to him, he says that he knew me from past lives, which is amazing. He doesn't speak English and I don't speak very good Portuguese, but we try to communicate. Although I will tell you one story of someone who went there. One of the times I went there, it's like, I think 4 years ago. And I was at this healing center. I was at the healing center in Rio Novo in the state of Minas Gerais, which is right next to the state of Rio de Janeiro. The state's the same name as the city, like New York. And I saw this person was filming things like on an iPad. And so I went up to him, asked him, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm seeing if we can put, a series on this healing, medium healing ship on something like Netflix, right? I've never seen it so far, so maybe it didn't work. I go, well, how did you find here? And he says, well, he says almost 10 years ago, and I forgot the exact time. He says, I work in Hollywood and I live in the United States for, most of my life. And I had this woman friend of mine who had a brain tumor. And she was told that, look, you have to go into a hospital and we're going to do an operation. And one of 2 things are going to happen. One is if you live, you'll be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. 2, you're going to die. And she didn't like either of those options. So she researched and she found this place in Brazil. And And so, and you can look it up on my website, nwspiritism.com. Look up Spiritual Healing Center, and you'll find my articles. And I'll have links to that. I think it's the Adolfo Fritz Paranoid Society or something like that. I've got the name wrong. Which it's Chico Monteiro is the person who is the medium. So she said, "Look, can you come with me?" Because he's Brazilian, but he's lived in the United States for a long time. "Can you come with me to Brazil? Because I need someone who can speak Portuguese." So he went with her to Brazil. And he came to this place that I was at in Rio Novo. And so Chico Monteiro looked at her and said, "Well, you need to come here. You need to come here like 2 times a week for the next month or 6 weeks. I don't have the time right. This is old memory." So she went. She went there for, the time she was told, for how long she was told, and to get healing constantly. And when you're inside, he'll put his hands around you, and then he'll not in your face, but like on your chest. He'll like this, and you'll see afterwards. You'll see like a little spark or like a little blood come up or like a little welt, but it'll just be it feels like an electric pulse that someone shocked you. So then she went back and she went to the hospital and said, "Okay, how am I doing?" They took an x-ray of her. She goes, "Oh my heavens, that shrunk immensely. We can fix this now with chemotherapy." So then she went on chemotherapy and they got rid of the rest of the tumor. Again, this is another important part of spiritual healing. The spirits understand what is available and what is not available in modern medicine. So never be, say, "Oh, I don't need modern medicine." Well, yes, you do. The spirits understand what they can help you and what you can help yourself. They're not going to help you everything. You've got to be part of this. And you need to really study and be more spiritual, right? Because there's been studies said that people who are more spiritual are healthier and live longer than those who aren't, because you relax and your chakras and your 4 centers are in harmony. That makes a big difference. So, the long and short of it, this woman was helped quite dramatically. And this is very important for people to understand. I do believe in spiritual healing. I do not believe in spiritual healing without also consulting your doctor if something is really wrong with you. Don't do that, please. But it is there. And then even when I get passes, when I'm at the Spirit Center, right, when we used to have our own spiritual center in the United States, and I would give passes. I was amazed as I was standing there and I could feel the energy going through my arms. And I do not believe that was psychosomatic. I truly believe that I could feel the energy. In fact, that's the only really ability I think I have as far as is when I can feel spirits. I can feel the electricity in my arms. It's, in fact, one time I worked for a pretty large bank, and they had Tony Blair after he had been finished being the Prime Minister of England. And I was sitting like almost in the front row, and I was sitting fine. And then he walked on stage, and I could just feel the spirits around him. My arms was like, lit up. I go, "Oh my God, they're following." He's a pretty important person. He's probably had a good mission, and he was supposed to be doing important things. I could just feel the spirits around him. But, that's the only talent I have, very little. But anyway, so I hope this discussion is good for you. I hope that you tell other people about our Sunday afternoons, nights, or mornings, wherever you are in the world. Please read and study about Spiritism. In fact, if you want to go about what we were talking about is how spirits really do help us and guide us. Let me bring that book up. Here we go. How We Are Guided by Spirits. That's my 3rd book. I have 3 books. Book 1, Heaven Below. Book 2, Spirits and the Attributes of Spirits, which is about how spirits and, how they rise, what their powers are, and how they get more capabilities the higher they go. And then this book is how we are individually guided by spirits, how each one of us have a life plan, plus information about what is awaiting the earth. right? We are now on a planet of atonement. We will become a planet of regeneration. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. And thank you, Allan, for helping me with when you couldn't hear my microphone. I appreciate that immensely. So please share and hit the bell, and we will talk to you next Sunday. And also, we will be back here at the same time, 5 Eastern on Tuesday night, and we'll talk more about Spiritism. God bless you.